everything isn't the same about everything all the time. So you discriminate, you rank order things, and you need to rank order them even to pursue things that are valuable. This is one of the problems with the people who are so anti-hierarchy, like the radical leftists. Well, there shouldn't be hierarchies. It's like, okay, then why do something? It also doesn't mean that the hierarchies, especially if they're human hierarchies, that they're predicated on power. Like one of the most pathological elements of the postmodern types, especially people like Foucault, is their insistence that all hierarchical structures are predicated on power, and that there's nothing other than power. And that's completely preposterous. I mean, I use examples of plumbers in my lectures more recently because it's rather comical. It's like, well, on what basis do you hire a plumber? So imagine that there's a hierarchy of plumbers ranging from very successful to very unsuccessful. Okay, and you say, well, what makes plumbers successful? Well, the power theory would imply that there are roving bands of mafioso plumbers who like come pounding on your door at 3 a.m. and tell you that if you don't get their particular posse to fix your pipes leaking or not, that they're going to come and burn down your house. Of course, it's completely absurd. When you go to hire someone like a plumber, well, the first thing you want to know is reputation. Can they actually fix a pipe? Because you actually want your pipe fixed. And then you want to know, well, do they deal with you fairly? And part of what's tangled up in that, in all likelihood, is do they deal with their employees fairly? Because that's going to make their business function properly. And so the hierarchy of plumbers, which is part of the patriarchal tyranny, is almost entirely predicated on competence. Almost every enterprise in the West is like that. Because I keep wondering, well, where the hell is this patriarchal tyranny? Like, is it massage therapists? Is it nurses? Like, most nurses are female. If you get females organized into a hierarchy, which you do in nursing, is that all of a sudden, is that part of the patriarchal tyranny? Or is it the fact that now all those people are women? Does that mean it's no longer, well, it's still a hierarchy? Is it no longer a tyranny? Is it no longer patriarchal? Like, is it patriarchal only because there's men in it, or is it patriarchal because it's a hierarchy? All of this stuff is so incoherent that it just, all you have to do is think about it, and that hasn't been done to any great degree, and it just dissolves in your hands.
Yes.
That's the fundamental issue. As soon as you, so we could look at it this way. As soon as you, let's assume people have problems. Everybody can agree on that. And then we could assume that people would like solutions to those problems. So we could agree on that. Then we could say, well, then if you implement a solution socially, so with other people, then you're going to cooperate and compete in relationship to the solution. And that's instantly going to produce a hierarchy. Because no matter what the problem is, some people are going to be better at solving it than others. And then if you have any sense, you put the people who are good at solving it at the forefront, because then they solve it faster and cheaper and better. And then everybody benefits. But then you get a hierarchy. And they do that because the rest of us are greedy and desperate. It's like, you know, we want the people who are good at solving the problems to keep solving them, and so what we're trying to do is to reward them so that they'll keep doing it even if it's difficult. And then what you could say, like, so okay, so the right, that would be roughly speaking a conservative position, and then you can take a left-wing position that's reasonable, and you can say, yes, there are hierarchies, but we have to stay awake because they can degenerate into power hungry tyrannies. So that it's no longer competence, it's political machination and game playing and tyranny that produce the positional differentiation. So we got to stay awake to that, and so we got to criticize the hierarchies, not the fact of hierarchy, but the structure of hierarchy, so they stay honest. And then we also have to be careful, because when you do set up a hierarchy, then a lot of people collect at the bottom. That's the necessary consequence of a few people collecting at the top. And so then you have to be concerned about those people at the bottom. And so there's a variety of things that you would do to express that concern. Is one, you might want to have a lot of hierarchies so that people of different talents could play different games. And a complex society is pretty good at that. But you're still going to have people who stack up at the bottom of all hierarchies, right? And those are going to be people who are sick, mentally and physically, and maybe people who are cognitively impaired, or who've experienced some kind of catastrophe in their life. And then you want to set up your system so that those people don't suffer unduly, partly because that's bad and partly because that destabilizes your whole society. And so you could say, well, that's the left's place, is to speak on behalf of the unjustly dispossessed. And the right's position is to stabilize and maintain functional hierarchies. And then the political dialogue is a continual discussion between the left and the right, saying, well, this hierarchy's getting a little too steep and a little too rigid, and and that's, for me, that's also the fundamental reason for the necessity of free speech. It's the only way of working it out.
Yeah.
And it is the case. You're going to produce hierarchies. If you're going to pursue things of value socially, you're going to produce hierarchies. And they're necessary.